Evander Kane. We reported early this morning another top 5 player on our free agent board is no closer to a contract extension with the Edmonton Oilers. He's looking long-term. He is steadfast in his belief, his camp led by agent Dan Milstein of Gold Star Hockey, that he can get a long-term deal somewhere between $40 to $50 million in total when the market opens on Wednesday. And because the two sides have not made any progress in talks, and they did meet on Sunday, that reportedly the Evander Kane camp now has the ability to speak to other teams to open that process. So essentially the Edmonton Oilers, if I'm reading this correctly, have said, okay, you think you can get somewhere between $40 and $50 million? Go ahead, be our guest. Show us what the market looks like. And if we need to reconsider, we will. Our former colleague, Tim Peel, who actually broke way back when that Evander Kane was going to the Edmonton Oilers, says that Kane got an offer from Edmonton that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 years times $4.5 million, somewhere in the mid $4 million range. And that jives with exactly what I had heard previously, that the Oilers are not willing to go long-term, certainly not 6 or a 7-year deal. They recognize the fit, Mike, that Evander Kane had with Connor McDavid. Almost a perfect stylistic fit, a true finisher, someone with size and edge to his game. But in this case, even though it seemed to be a perfect marriage, at least in the very short term, that they can't come together on a long-term deal, perhaps some concern about what that looks like moving forward, given some of Kane's past history. Now, if you're the Oilers, does this make sense, or would you still go after Kane on the long term? And if not, do you think there's a team out there that'll give Kane a 6 or a 7-year deal?
I think it really depends where a team is in their trajectory and what they have for cap space. I mean, if you're Edmonton, for me, there's other needs that are pressing. Like, I still think they need puck moving defensemen. Like, Duncan Keith's not going to be there next year. You know, what if you can grab a player on the open market that's going to be worth that to be able to boost that position? You know, they still need a goaltender as well. And when you're trying to balance all of these things, where's Kane going to fit in the mix at 31 years old? Yeah, he fit like a glove. Yeah, he worked great. But you've also got the grievance up in the air that there's not going to be any resolution on whether his deal with the Sharks is still valid, Frank. So if I'm a general manager out there on a contending team, I'd be very nervous to signing Kane, because you may not even know if you're going to have him, much less for $7 million a season. Like, it's going to take a lot of cap space. Like, I do think that if I were on a club that was in a different place, like, and I'm just throwing names out, but like Seattle Kraken, New Jersey Devils, Detroit Red Wings, teams that have cap space that are looking to raise their profile in the game, maybe you'd be more willing to go after Kane in that type of scenario and roll the dice a little bit on signing that deal, because you don't want to get hamstrung with not having cap flexibility should that deal not be valid down the road. So, the shorter term deal for Kane, boy, it's a great fit in Edmonton, but like, straight up, dude, this is a guy that needs money. And he's going to try to milk this free agent process for everything he has because of bankruptcy and everything else. So I can understand both sides of it, but I definitely appreciate the Oilers taking a hard line here.
To your point, Mike, on the money front, and with regards to that contract termination grievance process that is ongoing and that we don't have a resolution for, I'm told the Oilers have tried to present a few different creative options to get Kane back up towards that $7 million AAV, basically saying, hey, whatever this settlement ends up being, we will top you up. We will pay the difference to make sure that you are made whole if indeed you go down the settlement path. To this point, Kane has not had any interest in engaging in settlement talks. I think the Oilers have tried to spur that process on as much as possible. But the response from the Kane camp is whatever happens on that front with regards to the contract termination, that's separate. If he ends up getting money from that, he'd like money from that pile and to essentially double dip from the free agent pile as well to mash that up into a really nice number. Can't certainly blame a player for asking given his situation or spot that he's in. But the Oilers have tried a bunch of different ways to make this work and make this palatable for Kane, seemingly to no avail to this point. I'm really curious what Dan Milstein and Evander Kane can dig up on the open market here in short order.